half the union, including GOP strongholds like Montana, will give workers more money to support their families. The first time ever that a majority of states will have a higher minimum wage than the federally required amount.
3.1 million workers received a pay raise to start 2015. The minimum wage increased in 21 states. In Connecticut, the minimum wage goes from $8.70 to $9.15 an hour, with plans to increase the wage to $10.10 an hour by 2017. Good for workers, but could it be bad for business? Michael Saltsman is the research director at the Employment Policies Institute. Time to punch the clock right now for Michael as he joins us live on Midpoint. Good afternoon, Michael.
Hey, good afternoon.
We're not going to negotiate your salary. We're going to just go right into the facts. 3.1 million workers. They've got to be very happy, but some will argue, hey, this wage increase could cost some of those workers their jobs. What do you think?
Well, I think if you look at the evidence, that's what it says. And in fact, even just this year, we have two new studies out from the National Bureau of Economic Research that looked at past increases in the federal minimum wage and state minimum wages and found that it's not so simple as just saying, 3 million people are getting a raise. Some of those people may see their hourly pay go up, but instead they lose hours at the job. Some even lose their jobs entirely. And so for them, they're actually worse off after the new policy takes effect.
Well, Michael, do you think that all the increases we're seeing at the state level, though, will influence Congress to raise the national minimum wage?
I think if anything, I think it may, decrease some of the pressure in Congress. I think right now what we're seeing is as the economy grows, people are getting a raise on their own. It's what's happened in the past is that when the minimum wage doesn't go up, people aren't stuck there. In fact, people continue to earn raises independent of the government deciding to take action. And so I think the hope right now is that people continue to have those opportunities, even as states are increasing the bar at which someone who doesn't have a lot of skills or experience has to be paid to get hired.
The big argument has always been, why have a national minimum wage? Shouldn't it be left to the states? I mean, 10.10 means a lot more in, let's say, Mississippi than in New York City. What do you think of that state argument?
Well, I think the biggest benefit, if you call it that, of states raising their minimum wages, it creates a lot of evidence for economists to study. The reason we know a lot of what we do about the minimum wage and poverty, for instance, is the last time you had this many states act, between 2003 and 2007, you had 28 states raise their minimum wage. So economists studied that period. They found that there wasn't a lot of evidence that a higher minimum wage really did reduce poverty on net. So I think we're going to see more evidence like this due to this round of state minimum wage increases.
So in essence, almost these 21 states are going to be like economic laboratories, and the successes or the failures will be studied really to see if there's going to be more of that heading into, like, let's say 2016, correct?
That's right. Yeah. I mean, I think this probably will factor as an issue in the presidential election. And I think probably what people are going to be watching the most closely is some of these experiments that are happening in cities where you have cities going for $13, $14, $15 an hour minimum wages. These are in sort of constrained geographic areas where a business can not only choose to lay off staff, but maybe even leave the city entirely. So I think we may be seeing some new dynamics here that we haven't seen in the past.
As always, polling is kind of, depending on which poll you look at, whether people are thinking this is a popular measure. But I wanted to ask you, in 2016, could a Republican running for president be in favor of increasing the minimum wage?
I think they could be in favor of a smaller increase in the federal minimum wage. I don't think you'll see anyone come out in favor of 10.10, but depending on the candidate, Jeb Bush has both a brother and a father who signed minimum wage increases during their time in office. So I don't think it's beyond the question that it could happen. What I think and what I hope will happen, though, is that an environment where this becomes an issue, where we don't lose sight of the evidence that really shows that if you're trying to help low-wage employees on net, this is not the best way to do it, whether you're talking about a $1 increase or a $3 increase.
Well, one of the advocates, though, of the minimum wage increase will point to the income inequality in this country. What does your research show you as far as maybe trying to balance the scales for the middle class as they try to, maybe attain higher financial success?
So, I mean, it's an interesting question. One of the things that the proponents have tried to do is try and make this something of a middle class issue, but the argument doesn't really work for them. I mean, economists who have studied the minimum wage issue as it relates to income inequality in the past have found that on net, it really just redistributes income among low-income employees. There are some who gain, but they seem to gain at the expense of others. And so on net, people tend to be a little bit worse off in terms of the equality measure after the minimum wage goes up. And so I don't think it's the kind of policy you look to try and address this broader issue of income inequality.
All right, Michael Saltsman, thank you so much. We appreciate all your discussion and thoughts on this from the Employment Policies Institute. Once again, 21 states enacting this new minimum wage increase. Coming up, look at some other new laws from across the country, from a ban on fracking to tattooing and piercing.